I would like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Monona on Monday, December 15th, 2014. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Spate.
Here.
Alder O'Connor.
Here.
Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Alder Thomas.
Here.
Alder Bussey.
Here.
Mayor Miller.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion for approval of the minutes of the December 1st meeting?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Discussion, corrections, deletions. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Appearances. We have one appearance this evening, which is the presentation of our stormwater management plan being put forth this evening by Betsy Powers of SCS Engineers and Darren Pope of Veerbecker and Associates. Welcome, Betsy. Floor is yours.
So we've been working with the city on developing a master stormwater management plan for the city. There's kind of three drivers. Just kind of in general, we all know that the city values stormwater quality and is dedicated to improving water quality. But in addition to that, there are also some drivers pushing that. One of the things is the city's 2014 through 2016 strategic initiative, which includes some goals for stormwater quality improvement. But then there are also two regulatory drivers that are pushing improving stormwater quality. The first is an existing permit that the city has with the DNR. It is a municipal separate storm sewer, otherwise known as MS4 permit, that the city collectively joined in with several surrounding communities, including City of Madison, the UW, Dane County, and several other surrounding communities, to collectively go in on one permit in order to save costs and be more efficient in meeting the permit requirements. That's an existing permit. The city is currently meeting the requirements of that permit. But the city is also in the Rock River drainage basin, and the Rock River was classified as an impaired water by DNR, which means that it's not meeting its water quality goals. And the pollutants that it's not meeting the goals for are total suspended solids and total phosphorus. So once a waterway is declared impaired, the DNR is then charged with developing some waste loads for those pollutants of concern, and then kind of distributing those among the communities and industries in that watershed for water quality goals that they must meet. So those are the drivers that we're kind of pushing this project. So in order to kind of see where the city's at, baseline, where are we at today in reducing suspended solids and phosphorus, Darren Pope with Veerbecker kind of updated the city's overall model. And Darren, do you want to say a few words about that?
Sure.
I'll try to give just a 30,000 square or foot overview of it. Part of the work that we do for the city is reviewing site development plans, and the Plan Commission members have heard me talk about how when a new site comes in, we require them to model their stormwater and make sure that they're meeting the ordinance requirements. So there's a model called SLAM, which is a Surface Loading and Management Model, that's been developed to estimate the amount of total suspended solids and phosphorus that is in runoff that when it rains comes off of a watershed. And so this model then, or there have been various models developed for the city, and the map over here shows that there's I believe 23 different watersheds based on topography in the city that have then storm sewer systems. And so then we updated the individual models for each one of those watersheds. The last time that was done was in 2007, and there's been a change in the software that's been used for that. There's been newer versions, so we've brought it up to the most recent version, And then there's also been some improvements that the city has done to their stormwater system, added some detention basins, improved some other existing basins in order to help reduce the sediment and the phosphorus that leaves the city's storm sewer system and goes into the Yar River or into Lake Monona. So we added those the best management practices, they're referred to, that the city has invested in since 2007 and put those into the model. And also had adjusted some of the way that the modeling is done to the current standards that DNR has for communities that have an MS4 permit. And then sites have been redeveloped in the city over the years since 2007, and the city's allowed to then take credit for improvements that have happened on private property in terms of improving stormwater quantity and quality, because the city has an ordinance that enforces those improvements to happen. So then we looked at the sites that have been redeveloped, sites that have had stormwater management improved on them, and added those into the model as well, so that it results in a current estimate when you put all these models together of what the city is then has in their runoff in terms of the total suspended solids in the phosphorus. And so then when we had the models up to date, we ran it, and one of the requirements of the city's MS4 permit is that the city should be working towards reducing the total suspended solids, having a 40% reduction compared to if the city wasn't doing any type of stormwater management practice. So we ran the model, the updated model for that, and found that the city does achieve a 40% reduction in suspended solids through the best management practices that they have in place, which is good news. But then, as Betsy had mentioned, there is also the TMDL that the DNR is going to be enforcing in the next version of the MS4 permit that comes out. So the phosphorus is another pollutant that they're interested in reducing from the city of Monona because of the TMDL. So this model will give you a baseline of where things are at today for the city, and then when the TMDL standards come out in the new permit and you know what you have to reduce down to, this model can be used as a tool to test improvements, to plan to get the city down to where it needs to be for their reductions in sediment and phosphorus. Yeah. So that, in a nutshell, is what the modeling is about. So if there's any questions about the modeling, I can answer those.
Any questions? Yes, Alder Bussey?
So with our best practice now, we're at the 40% reduction in solids, but this phosphorus is kind of a floating goal because we don't really know the baseline yet.
We know the baseline of it. We're looking, right now the model is telling us that we've got about 26% reduction from the overall city in phosphorus.
And our goal is?
There isn't a goal right now in the MS4 permit, but that will be forthcoming with the new permit.
And are we going to be required to achieve a goal we don't know what it is, and how much is it going to cost to get there? Or is this an educational thing?
Is it not a case where we're just one small piece of a huge, the
Yeah.
Rock River what is it,
TMDL.
DL?
Yeah, total
I mean,
maximum
that's
daily
through
load.
that whole participatory, and it hasn't been approved by the EPA yet, or whatever, in terms of through MMSD's management, the alternative management plan that we're doing on the north end of Lake Monona. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces to that.
Yeah, I think Betsy can speak to that, and that's kind of what the stormwater management plan will look at.
Yeah, so I think I can start to address some of those issues as we kind of just finish up through this presentation. So as Darren mentioned, we're currently meeting the MS4 requirements, which is strictly related to total suspended solids. This TMDL pulls in the phosphorus criteria. The DNR contact has provided some of the EPA did approve the DNR's goals, so we do have those numbers now. What we did is we took Darren's model results And the TMDL is done a little bit differently. So but the MS4 model, the SLAM model, is done just on a citywide basis. The TMDL kind of subdivides it into some sub-watersheds. So, and they're done by reaches, so really like a stretch of a river or stream before it hits another confluence with another one. So it's like 3 reaches that fall within the city's realm. So within each of those 3 reaches, there's a different goal for sediment and there's a different goal for phosphorus. So we rearranged Darren's modeling data to correspond to those reaches now. And I don't know if you guys have hard copies of your plan, but table 1 of our draft stormwater management plan shows that rearranged version. And if you don't have it, so for example, one of the reaches, once we rearrange the data, has a 31% current reduction in TSS, in the total suspended solids. The TMDL goal is 73%.
31% reduction from what point in time?
From doing no sort of stormwater management for the city. So it takes Darren's data
Okay.
with all these different watersheds. It puts those watersheds into the reaches that they fall in, associated with the TMDL, and then calculates the total suspended solids reduction. So it's not going to, it's going to be something, some of them are less than that 40%, some are more. They would all average out to the 40% that Darren computed overall for the city. So for one reach, again, we're about 31%. The goal is 73%. Adding that phosphorus criteria in for one particular reach, we're currently getting about a 20% reduction. The goal is 61%. And those are pretty typical. So you see we're falling short in all of those. But that's, I mean, don't worry, because that's, the DNR knows that, and that's why they're, if we were meeting the goals, the water wouldn't be impaired. So it's expected that we're not meeting them.
Much stronger goals
Right.
than what was put forth during that was struck down to
Yes.
reach 40% by 2000 and by this year, wasn't it? Or-
2013, yeah. So in 2011, then
and it got
yeah,
struck down by the governor.
right.
And now they're even much more aggressive, because we were well on our way to achieving
Right,
those
and
original goals, but which
We
were
did.
40% reduction, correct? And now we're at 60 and 73? Wow.
right.
Bring it
So
on, but holy cow.
yeah,
I
so
mean, because I remember City of Madison, it was going to be absolutely impossible for them to meet with their Jeeps sweeping up leaves, and they couldn't make 40. How are we going to make 60s and 73s?
yeah, it's definitely aggressive, and the DNR does realize that it's aggressive and it's going to take time. So it's not a short-term goal. They know it's long-term. And some of these new approaches, like what you mentioned, the pilot study with the Yahara winds to do adaptive management, water quality trading, they know that some of these new approaches might be needed, and those are in the early stages to figure out how they're really going to work, and how you'll divide up the credits that they provide. So
So Yahara wins some of that, some small sliver that will be apportioned to Monona for our contribution to helping that.
potentially,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, that would be something you'll need to work out with as a
We
group.
will, because
Yeah,
we're going to have
right.
it. So
You definitely
I
take
don't
credit
look
for
to
everything you're
staff.
doing.
Yeah, we need to, these numbers are incredible, wow.
Yeah. So to then kind of look at, okay, what are some things the city can do? Then the next part of the master stormwater management plan was to look at what are some things the city can do. And so there are things that are quantifiable in the model that would show a reduction, and there are some things that are not quantifiable. But those things that aren't quantifiable are things that also help meet the city's strategic initiative. There are also things that, even though you might not be able to take credit for them in the model, you can know that you're doing some really good things. Like, it's going to have a benefit to water quality, you just might not be able to take credit for it, and I think the city still values that. So there are things like policy revisions. And one thing that the DNR is really looking at, and it's particularly applicable to the city of Monona because we're landlocked and there's not new development going on, is looking at the potential to increase your redevelopment total suspended solids standard. So other communities have done it, including ones that are in that Monona is in the MS4 permit with. So for instance, like it's typical, and the city has a 40% reduction in total suspended solids for a redevelopment project. You could up that to the new development standards of 80%. So anytime there's a new redevelopment, you're going to make them make them develop it to a higher standard than what you do now.
Has anybody made that step?
The city of Madison is doing it. Yep. So, I mean, certainly you don't want to push away any redevelopment in the city, but I think if other communities are doing it as well, maybe it makes sense.
Is there a way we can just get a cheat sheet in terms of what those measures are? I mean, that's an incredible, that's 100% increase of removal. What Madison, how are companies doing that?
Well, they're implementing, like more robust stormwater management features, so maybe where they maybe would have just put in a sediment structure, now they're putting in a rain garden, something that has a more robust treatment structure to it.
Yeah, I guess if I look to staff, if we could learn how are we going to do this so that those of us who are meeting with potential developers can give them a heads up and be proactive that this isn't going to stop any of these developments.
Right, yeah, I think
It
that,
only makes Monona better if you play with us.
right. I think, yeah, those are all definite concerns you want to think about as you think about that as one of your options. There are also in the plan things such as educational opportunities. So again, those might be things that you wouldn't actually in the end get credit for in the SLAM model, but they're still things that would make a difference. There are some thoughts on incentive programs in this draft plan. Those would be like the rain barrel programs, maybe doing a cost share for rain gardens on individual properties, that kind of stuff. Again, those wouldn't necessarily be practices that you could account for in the model, but again, there are still steps in the right direction to improving water quality. Then we can look at things that would actually be accountable in the stormwater model. So those would be more of your really structural kind of management practices, so your basins, so like the lake edge basin, things like that. The problem is, you don't have a lot of space to put those anymore. So it's probably really kind of maybe working with the parks department and seeing, is there any space in any of these parks that we could look at installing something like this? So I think maybe those types of conversations could be initiated.
I was going to bring this up, excuse me for interrupting, but now's the time. I look to staff and Dan as, we're putting in these swirl systems.
Yep.
And, we're going to do one at Schluter. I hope somebody's measuring the results of what, I know we're having to go out and empty those twice as often as we've ever had. They're working, but I hope we have a measurable coming out of this so that we can go, why did we spend all this money and why is Dane County this is why they're
Yes.
working, and how are they working, because we've removed X pounds of solids, and are they able to determine how much, when they go vacuum those out, how much crap they're taking out of these?
Right now, we measure by cubic yard. I don't
Okay,
know.
that's fine. Just so there's some metric that we can present that this
Yeah.
works.
But as far as what percent of phosphorus we might be removing or TSS, I
Yeah.
don't know.
So that kind of information would be spit out by the SLAM model. So the SLAM model would be updated, so you'd put kind of the design features of what that structure looks like into the model, and then it'll spit out what are the total suspended solids and phosphorus removal reductions that are provided by that, and that would count towards
So if we
your
provide
reductions.
cubic yards.
So it's not really by a field measurement, it's really by what the model's spitting out
Okay.
for that.
Because I want to get we're
Absolutely.
on task to be the best city for this. I want to prove that we are the
Yeah,
best city.
and the city's doing a lot of the right things. They're looking at projects they have planned already and saying, well, if we're going to have a mobilization cost and we're going to be tearing stuff up already, is this an opportunity where we could, put in a structure or some other sort of stormwater management feature? So the city's doing a great job of that, really kind of looking forward and trying to figure that kind of stuff out. So definitely
I just
commend
wanna
the
be
city
able
on
to
that.
Back it up, and not just my opinion we're doing a good job, but prove it.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about some of the structural stuff. So Jim, I know you were mentioning, okay, what are the steps we take and how much is it going to cost? This plan doesn't quite take us to that full point, and the reason it doesn't, we didn't come out at the end of this and say, here's exactly what you should do. Put in a basin here, put in a structure here, do that, because for several reasons. And one is because we don't have that actual permit yet from the DNR that's going to include all the TMDL requirements. Those TMDL requirements will be incorporated into the MS4 permit, and that will be renewed sometime early or mid of 2015. So we don't know for sure what all those requirements are going to look like and how they're going to word things. So I think once we have a better feel for how that's going to all play out,
And that permit's being issued to MMSD?
it's your
We're going to get...
your updated, yours right now, I think it's even expired, but you're just operating under the expired permit. They're going to reissue it, and when they reissue it, it's going to incorporate these TMDL requirements. So we'll get a better idea of what the expectation is and what the steps are once we get that new permit. The second thing is there are the multiple studies going on. There's the pilot study for the adaptive management that MMSD is heading up. There's the City of Madison is doing a leaf collection pilot study that in the end, they're looking at different methods of leaf collection and which one has the most benefit in reducing phosphorus. In the end, the results of that study may be incorporated into the SLAM model and show some reductions, allow the municipalities to show reductions based on their leaf collection approaches. So we want to kind of see what plays out with that. Maybe that's a good thing for the city to do versus putting in a structural BMP. We don't want to nail you down to anything right now because it's going to the DNR, and we don't want to nail you down to anything that doesn't make sense in the end once we have some of these, some of the permit requirements and some of these studies have kind of come out.
They love us, so whatever you tell them, that's going to get rubber stamped.
But what we did do to try to help with the decision-making process at this point is we prepared two tables in this plan, tables 2 and 3. Table 2 kind of looks at all of the options we explored for reducing sediment and phosphorus, which includes like the policy opportunities, the educational opportunities, and then it includes all of the structural opportunities, the basins, the rain gardens. And it kind of ranks them in terms of costs, the land requirements, maintenance considerations, and then there's a column that says, can the benefits of this actually be quantified in your model? So that's one piece. The second piece is table 3. Then we did actually kind of go and say, okay, within each watershed that's in the city, where might there be a good opportunity to do something? And we ranked kind of each watershed by ones that probably have a lot of acreage and have some pretty high suspended solids being spit out by the model. So we kind of use those as the higher priorities. Those are ones we probably want to try to take a kick at first, and then go to the moderate and low ones. So within the high ones, then what are the watersheds and what are some of the structural practices that maybe we could fit somewhere in there? We kind of laid those out. So those are kind of two of the tools we tried to help. We put in here to try to help guide the city as some of these, some of the actual permit requirements come out, and we have a better feel for what we're going to be facing and the timeline for it. So in the end, this will go to the DNR. This preparation of this plan was partially funded by a grant from the DNR. So they have seen an initial draft of it and had.
And are we working with both of you, or what's the relationship going forward on this? And SCS and Veerbecker, or?
Yeah, so Veerbecker updated the SLAM modeling. They've done that, and then we kind of put together the report all around it. So we will finalize. I think the SLAM report is pretty well finalized. I don't think there's going to be any changes to that. We'll make some final modifications to the plan as a whole, and if you have any comments to it or suggestions, we'll incorporate those before it's submitted.
And I know Leah couldn't. There was so much paper in that. I commend her on not printing all that.
Right.
So thank you. But I can't get it. This is online now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And what do you think is a potential time frame for the final?
I think we're planning on trying to submit it before the end of the year.
Oh. So okay. We're going to have our DNR?
We will not have the DNR permit at that point.
Right.
So this is kind of like a guidance, and the actual full permit will come out
Maybe I
later.
missed something, that this was where we're at today, but it's not where we're going to have a final plan. No, this is the plan, and then we'll modify it. It's
Yes,
a living
it'll be a
document.
working living
It's a
document,
working
yes.
document based upon what the DNR tells us. So,
Exactly.
So what we're looking at now is what we should concentrate on.
Right.
Alder Spate?
I'm just curious, when we signed on to the Green Tier Initiative program, they explained to us that we would get faster, better information from agencies like the DNR. And I'm just curious, can you speak at all to what, if any, guidance or assistance we will get as a community as a result of that? Or are we just part of this watershed and it really won't matter?
Well, so the DNR did very recently publish a guidance document for municipalities specifically related to trying to meet these TMDL requirements. So I did just take a look through that. It really was very recently issued. And a lot of the things that it was kind of spelling out as steps you could take are steps that have been recommended in the stormwater management plan, things like revising your policy to have a higher standard for redevelopment sites. We have a section here about bank stabilization that is reiterated by the DNR guidance. The DNR is trying to help municipalities kind of create these adaptive management pilot studies. So they're trying to help. They know this is going to be difficult. So they are trying to provide assistance to help people get brought together and create, maybe working relationships to try to collectively help each other meet some of these goals. I don't know if that's answering your question.
Well, I think you did. I mean,
Okay.
It sounds like it's not going to really matter that we're part of the Green Tier Initiative for this particular issue, but because there are only 10 municipalities, I believe, in the state of Wisconsin that are part of that. So
Okay.
anyway, I was just curious.
Any other questions?
And can I just confirm, maybe Dan, or Shannon, as I'm asking Pat, so the general public, the thousands who are watching this right now, and they want to go rush and look at this document, where on our website do we find this document?
I'm not sure if it's there right now, but it'll be in the storm utility.
All right, I'm being told it's there, and do we know?
I
if
have it up by email, that's.
How,
Yeah, it was
from
sent
late,
out
okay,
last week
but
by
for the
email.
general public, it will be, and where do they go to find it?
On the storm utility page. That's where it'll be.
Which falls under Public Works, or do we have our own page?
It's on the-
I'll get it for you.
Okay,
By the end, if it's not there now, by the end of the year, it'll be there, because that's when
okay. I just want to make sure the public has the ability to weigh in. Further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys do good work, and we
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Have a good holiday.
All right, that concludes the appearances section. There is no public hearing this evening. Under consent agenda, we do have one item, which is approval of applications for 2014-15 operator licenses for James Phillips at PDQ, Lionel Landry at Speedway, Devin Anderverd at Speedway, Matthew Napton at Buffalo Wild Wings, and Robert Klinzing at LaCalle's. Is there a motion for approval of the applications?
Approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval has been granted. Item G, council action items, unfinished business. 1A is consideration of ordinance 12-4-667, amending the Title 8, Chapter 3, Section 6 of the Monona Code of Ordinances regarding yard waste and brush disposal, brought forth by the Public Works Committee. Mr. Stefani, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last council meeting, Alderman Bussey asked for a calendar of this year and next year's brush collection schedule. So what's being passed out now is the schedule. To refresh, this went to the November 5th Public Works Committee and received a recommendation for approval to bring it to council. And what we're looking for is to place a time limit on when brush can be placed at the curb. What we have listed in the resolution is a 14-day window prior to the collection schedule for that particular area. I know Alderman Spate at the last meeting mentioned possibly 16 days. Either way, I guess I think either one of those time frames is acceptable, but if there's any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Questions? Alder Bussey.
No, but thanks for looking at the time in between here. The 2 weeks, there's very little time when they wouldn't be able to leave brush out on the street, it looks like. So I appreciate your sharing that.
And again, for the website, can this, make sure this gets posted if it's not already?
Yep, the current schedule is always on the website. We put it in the spring newsletter, and we also advertise it in the paper.
Yep.
So
And this is the schedule that went in the newsletter?
this will be in the next newsletter. This hasn't made it to press yet.
Okay.
So
I think there is a schedule in there, though, but
that was
because that newsletter runs now all the way until summer.
until spring.
Well, it's the spring, it's the winter spring
Winter,
guide.
spring.
Okay, but by that
Yeah.
time it gets, okay, all right. You're not the publisher. Okay. Any other questions?
Move approval?
This is new business.
Ooh. Oh, no, it says
No, this
unfinished.
second read.
Oh, unfinished, I'm sorry. There's a motion for approval and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Item 1B is consideration of ordinance 12-14-668, amending Title IX, Chapter 4 of the Monona Code of Ordinances regarding stormwater utilities. This too is being brought forth by the Public Works Committee. Mr. Stefani.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, this is the second read as well for this. The September 3rd Public Works Committee did review this as well and recommended approval to advance to council. At our last meeting, I believe it was requested to see a comparison of impervious square footage. Our member of our staff, Brad, who is currently reviewing the impervious square footage, compiled this the sheet that you have in front of you. He did pass out an updated sheet just before the meeting, and you know, I'm on the business side of that sheet. The third column down is the 2004 impervious square footage, and the very column next to it is a review of this year's data. Has a difference listed, total fee under the 2004 method, and then an approximate fee for 2014, and then the difference. He has residential on the backside.
This is all taken by satellite imagery that you're doing these
Brad, come on
calculations from? Alder Thomas?
Just a question, when I look at this schedule and on the residential, for example, everybody except for one person has an increase.
This is just a snapshot.
I understand, but what my question is, will the bottom line of what we collect using the new method be the same as using the old method? And if not, don't we need to reduce it so that we collect less money, or are we trying to collect more money?
I think, doesn't the motion state that we have to target our increased goal? That the math has to work into a number that
Right.
we are saying because of the stormwater rate increases.
The whole point of this, what we're bringing forward, is to go to a simplified structure to collect stormwater rates and determine stormwater rates, the ERU method.
Yep.
The goal with passing this is we're going to review the impervious square footage on a more frequent basis. The last time we did it was 2004.
Yep.
There's a lot of impervious square footage that we're missing out on, which is revenue we're missing out on. So the impervious square footage will go up based on Brad's initial review from what we had in 2004. So as that impervious square footage goes up, the average goes up. Whatever our operating budget is that we pass every year, that's going to be the figure that we have to meet. So this will be a fluctuating number, whether it's every other year or every third year that we review this. But the goal is to stay consistent or stay current with impervious square footage and the revenue that we're bringing into the stormwater utility to cover operations and maintenance of the utility.
So how much do we expect that this method will, additional dollars will it raise?
Well, we'll find out. There's just under 3,000 parcels. What you see here is probably 20 to 30. We have a lot of work to do to determine what our overall impervious square footage is. But Brad, I don't know if you have some preliminary numbers that I think you might have generated for Public Works.
Yeah.
So,
So I was just looking over the numbers from this. There's 16 residential parcels on this sheet. On average, per parcel has added about 750 square feet on an average, so of impervious space. And that's in 10 years. So you have to take in consideration in 2004, the budget that was needed to be raised, the revenue that was needed to be raised is probably a lot less than now in 2014. So the rate that you apply to that impervious square footage is going to be a lot less in 2004 than it would be today. Going through and doing this on a daily basis, I've noticed that most parcels add some square footage compared to what they used to be. The building footprint that I have for the impervious data that I have is from I think it's 2010 it was updated last by Dane County, and there's significant differences from 2010 from those building footprints to what I'm digitizing and updating now. So even in the last 4 years, there's been that many parcels that have added impervious square footage to their properties.
So if a resident has concerns over these numbers, we really have no leg to stand on to base how Dane County calculated this, correct?
Well, they used a classification method. It's part of remote sensing, and then they came up with these building footprints, and that's all they had really was building footprints. They didn't have driveways, they didn't have sidewalks, patios, unpaved driveways or otherwise pathways, certain things like that that are also additional impervious square footage that I have to update and digitize. And
So you're ready and willing when constituents have concerns that you can sit down. I mean, this is a black and white exercise.
It's defensible.
It's
Yes,
very
right.
defensible,
Yes.
totally defensible.
I guess the biggest thing is if we pass this, we got to make sure the council's comfortable with this. Because, the bottom line is whatever we pass in our stormwater utility, that's the way the rates are set to achieve that revenue to meet that expense. So I guess what's going to change is how that's divvied up. And the more impervious square footage we have, which Brad's finding is going up, I believe the less that
the fee rate.
the fee rate per the ERU is going to be.
Yeah.
So, but you all have to feel comfortable with it.
Alder Bussey?
So if this is done by satellite imagery, how can you tell what's a pervious and impervious surface? For example, the walkway in our front yard is pervious. Can you tell that from a satellite? Because it's
Well-
going to look like a sidewalk.
If it doesn't look like a sidewalk, then I won't count, it won't be
It'll
counted.
look like a sidewalk from a satellite.
It'll look like a sidewalk, it won't.
No. I mean, it's brick, but I mean, they're bricks, and so the water can go between the bricks, soak into the ground. So if there is a situation like that,
Yeah.
is there a citizen can come to you and say, you calculated so many square feet, then you can say, yeah, you're right, we'll deduct so many square feet.
Yeah, I can just, you essentially would edit the updates or the digitization.
But
so
people
you correct
people
it.
can do that if they put in a new driveway and it's all pervious surface.
Yeah.
And they change it, they can come to you.
The ordinance allows for that.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Alder Holmquist?
However, what caught my ear is when you started describing some of the impervious areas, and I think the little walk in front of your house would meet the definition of impervious according to what's written here.
Change that right now.
He said you gotta be comfortable. So you
And
can-
I think that's where some of the concern is, because it talks about or similar surfaces and impervious surfaces, such as highly compacted clay or gravel. I think many of the things that we are encouraging folks to put in to help encourage some infiltration would be counted as a pervious or impervious surface according to this. And that, I think that would be the concern of, let's say someone puts a patio in their yard and they pitch it in such a way to have that water drain to a pervious location. It's not adding to the stormwater, but it would be counted in the satellite imagery for the modeling.
Aren't you on this committee? Public
No.
Works? No? Oh, okay.
I am.
Okay, I would hope Public Works would kind of do those exercises and,
Well, I can speak to that. I mean, we had quite a bit of debate about this, and part of what we're doing is we're adopting a different model. The old model attempted to look at which way ground was sloping and some other things which we basically said was a flawed model. This model has other limitations. No model that the city would adopt that would be cost effective is going to be 100% accurate. You know, it's not possible for us to completely quantify the impervious percentage of land or to deal with things that are partially pervious. I mean, just speak to what
yeah, I guess that
Alder
would be my
Holmquist
question.
is saying,
right.
or to the, you know, I mean, a brick walkway is typically considered impervious. But, you know, how big the spaces are between the bricks plays into whether or not it's really impervious or pervious. And what if it's half of one and half of the other? I mean, you know, so where do we, I mean, at the end of the day, there will be a compromise. But I think our committee felt that this was a more equitable way to assess all of the properties and to be able to annually reassess them without great expense to the city.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
You guys are the ones who are going to have to field the questions, I'm
Yeah.
sure, so.
There is one part of this ordinance that I caught in another read, and it's on page 3, where it discusses the ERU, equivalent runoff unit. The last sentence is, 1 ERU is equal to 3,000 square feet of impervious area. I don't know if it's a good idea to put that in an ordinance. I wonder if it should be, if that particular sentence should be taken out, because that's going to be changing. That's going to change probably every time that we do a review.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we would put that, but
So you want that struck?
just that sentence, because that's going to be a constantly changing,
Not yet, go ahead.
Well, I'll move approval so we can amend.
Okay, there's a motion for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and second. Is there a
To
motion?
amend, to remove, what number is it? on the
on page 3, in the definition of equivalent runoff unit, it's the last sentence, 1 ERU is equal to 3,000 square feet of impervious area, just because that'll be a changing number.
So there was a definition earlier about how the ERU is calculated. I think it's important to indicate how we're calculating this number, but we don't have to say what the number is. And before we get to that part, I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. If currently it's roughly 3,000 square feet is a ERU, is that correct? So if I just take this top one on the residential side, it's showing 34, 36. So that would be basically one
One
ERU.
plus.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
plus a little sliver.
Yep.
So are we indicating that basically the price of the ERU is roughly $80?
It's about $73.50 for the year. These are yearly rates.
Okay.
So divide that into your quarterly billing cycle, and So it's about like 1850, I think, per quarter, or somewhere around there. And that fee, obviously, that's going to change. It's going to be adjusted because the more impervious space, the less the fee.
Right.
Per square footage, or per ERU, sorry.
Mhm.
So, I'm assuming that that'll probably go down in
That's a
a
big
fairly
help.
significant manner. Just in the updates I've done, it's gone down $1.50 per quarter, per ERU. So just in the, how much I've gotten done so far.
Okay, can I just check with the clerk? Did you capture, are you comfortable with capturing that amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
I'll second it.
There's a motion second on the amended motion. Discussion?
Is the amended motion to
Do
put in the
what Dan said.
calculation or to eliminate the sentence?
To eliminate the sentence.
Eliminate the
Yeah.
sentence. You don't
The
like it?
the calculations are part of the ordinance.
Can you confirm that?
Can you
Dan?
indicate where it is?
I
Well,
believe that-
section 9-4-7, stormwater utility rates, that section,
Top of page 5, I think, is where it gets into it.
Crossed off.
It doesn't state it per the words in the handout, but we can add it to that area.
So would the maker of the amendment clarify that we'll strike page 3, but also make point that within this, it's clearly stated the definition of an ERU in the calculation methodology is stated somewhere? That's what you're asking for, Alder Holmquist?
Yeah, I think if we're indicating that
Mhm.
we're switching to a unit, we need to somewhere say how the unit is determined,
Right.
rather than just saying, we're going to determine the size of the unit. So either put the calculation in the definition or put it in the rate. Either one is fine.
I would speak to that by saying that I thought the whole issue of the ERU confused the issue, because in reality, what we're doing is we're saying, how much impervious area do you have, and what is the cost of every square foot of that impervious area? The ERU says what is the average impervious area on a residential lot, and makes that one ERU. It would be like saying the average value of a home in Monona is $260,000. So one equalized residential house is worth $260,000, and we would set our property tax based on a unit of a $260,000 home. So if your home was worth 10% less than that, your property tax would be 10% less. It's all relative to the number of square footage, but it generalizes it to a residential lot average. It's because we're doing every lot based on what it is, the ERU concept is almost irrelevant, because we're charging by the square foot of impervious surface, period.
That's not what this chart's saying, no, Alder Spate, because, I mean, the example that he posted up here is impervious square feet from the current method, and then the impervious square feet from the ERU method. Is the ERU, they're using ERU methods.
However we do this, we need, if someone says, how does the city determine not the rate, because you never want to put the rate in the ordinance, but what are the calculations used to determine based on what the rate is? And that should be contained in the ordinance.
We can easily add that calculation right below
Which is what you
that
said.
paragraph on page 5. That's not a problem.
Okay,
Yeah, that's,
so I would move to include that
right.
definition.
The maker, what, Alder Spate then, or Alderwood then Alder Spate?
I just wanted to point out that when we started this discussion on this Public Works Committee, it was originally proposed that we give the same assessment to every residential lot in the city of Monona, which is really what ERU is all about.
Right.
It's equalized, or
Equivalent runoff.
you create a unit
Yeah.
per each lot and just say, we're going to charge that to everyone. But the committee felt that was not fair, because some lots are much bigger than others, and some have a lot more impervious surface on them. So, in some respects, we abandoned that original concept that the ERU typically embraces, but we're still basing it on a way to determine what's impervious and what isn't.
And I agree with that, but if I say to you, how are you going to calculate this?
Right.
Explain it to me in 2 sentences or 3 sentences.
Mhm.
How are you going to calculate it? The rate X times whatever is how you do it. That's the sentence that...
Yep.
Yep.
And it's equivalent runoff units equals a parcel's total impervious square footage divided by the average impervious square footage per single-family residential parcels. Using the average impervious square footage of approximately 3,000 square feet, that number will change. The city divides the total square footage of citywide impervious space in order to find the total number of ERUs within the city. So that, basically, those 2 sentences would be put after the first paragraph on page 5 as our calculation.
And then annually, when we do the budget, we'll set a rate.
Right. And then probably whenever they do the new flyover is when we would determine, do another review of the impervious square footage, which is about every 2 years or so,
Yep.
I believe is the flyover.
And I don't think it hurts to say in there someplace, in that sentence, these rates will be periodically
Updated.
adjusted or updated. That make
Okay.
sense?
So you amended your motion.
Just say that.
Who was the second on that?
Chad.
Alder Chad.
I accept
Are you okay with that? All right.
And Joan, if you need specific language tomorrow, I can help you with that.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Yes, Mark?
Can you make, I don't know if it's in where it's in there, but you can make this effective as of January 1st, 2015 for the billing purposes? Otherwise, it's a mess for us on our end to bill it. If you do it halfway, I don't know what it says in there for actual bill date, but we need an effective,
Didn't I say January 1st?
did you say it's, I'm sorry, I missed that. Yep,
I thought I said that.
okay.
No,
I didn't see it in the resolution.
She's joking.
but we will add it.
But she is.
You done by?
That's
But
in
just-
her-
just
that's
so
in
you're
her
aware-
amendment.
Just so you were, just
With Alderwood?
It needs to be changed in the now therefore it be it resolved clause, 'cause right now it says, shall take effect upon passage and publication as provided by law,
Yeah.
rather than January 1st. I don't know if it'll be published in time to be.
When published.
That's, I think we could just amend that and not, we don't want to put necessarily the effective date in the ordinance, we don't need to anyway.
No, it wasn't, it's not, didn't mean it to be in the ordinance.
Where did you read that, Alderwood?
It's in the resolution.
And now therefore be it resolved
Therefore it
clause.
be
In the resolution.
Looking
That's
at the
fine
right
where it's
resolution?
written in the resolution.
Yeah, that's the resolution.
Yeah. That's all we need.
Okay.
Change that to January 1st, 2015.
Yep.
Is that an amendment?
All right, so we're going back to the amended motion?
Well, I would
Or
move to
or
amend.
do you want to make this as, okay. Is there a motion to amend the date on the resolution?
I would move to change it to January 1st, 2015.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion on changing the date, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving to Alder Thomas's and seconded by Alder Spate's amendment. Is there further discussion on that of defining ERUs or the methodology? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment passes to the original resolution. There was a motion and second. Further discussion on the original resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item C is consideration of ordinance 12-14-669, amending Title 15, Chapter 2 of the Monona Code of Ordinances regarding erosion and stormwater runoff control, brought forth by the Public Works Committee. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Stefani,
Thank you,
again.
Mayor. Really no update from our first reading. Again, the Public Works Committee discussed and reviewed this at our August 6th meeting with a recommendation for approval to council. Coming out of our first reading, I don't think there was any additional information requested on this, so if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Questions, Alder Wood.
How does this dovetail with the report we had earlier tonight on the stormwater management plan and the increasing percentages of reductions that we need?
Darren, can you assist with that answer?
The standards for redevelopment in the ordinance would remain unchanged from what they are now. So in terms of total suspended solids, one of the parameters of concern, the current ordinance has that redevelopment sites would have to reduce the total suspended solids by 40%. Betsy had mentioned that City of Madison has moved or changed their ordinance to require redevelopment to reduce it by 80% in order to try to help them address the upcoming TMDL requirements. Not knowing exactly what Monona was going to be asked to do from the DNR at the point that we were rewriting this ordinance, we didn't propose any changes to those performance standards at this time.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm okay with adopting it the way it is, but once we find out those numbers, Dan, we should, if it needs to be changed, and take it to Public Works and then bring it here.
Okay.
Okay. Further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Item D is consideration of Resolution 14-12-1996 is approving updates to the City of Monona Emergency Operations Plan. This was brought forth by the Public Safety Commission. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Marsh.
Yeah, there were no requests for changes to the document as presented to the council at the last meeting. Once again, I'd like to thank Larry Reed for his efforts through the Public Safety Committee in getting this document completed and working with staff on a tabletop exercise to get us familiar with the process. But it's a much improved document from what we had before, and it will be a living document that we need to keep up on and change periodically.
I think Larry said he did hope to have a tabletop similar exercise with the council involved at some point in time.
Yep.
And as that's noted, as I read through this, if I could ask for one addition in there, I saw they had a section of contact names and phone numbers that had been deleted in this document just for privacy's sake. But when the final document's put together, if there could be also of elected officials, so not just the mayor, but also the council members, just the more convenient one stop to get telephone numbers to call out to everybody. the better. So it had all the police officers' radio numbers and all that stuff in there, but I didn't see anywhere in there where it's noting how to contact all of us by telephone.
That would just be the mayor in this situation. The council wouldn't have a participatory role in the process, given their role in the city.
Wouldn't the,
Yeah, Alderwood?
wouldn't the council president have a role if?
Yeah. The tornado?
If the council president would, if he was serving in the mayoral position, so that's why the mayor's.
The amount he's out of town, I think.
I was thinking that exact same thing Mayor Wood.
Doesn't he have
Yeah.
a cell phone?
But
So
we
so
can
if we, yeah,
ask
if we
him.
could just, the more telephone numbers on one sheet of paper in an emergency, the better. That
Yeah.
Mayor Wood? Yes.
Hussey?
Oh, okay.
Well, just one other change, and I had mentioned this to Pat before, that the, need to correct the name of the name and phone number for the railroad that's listed. It's in Wisconsin Southern, not Wisconsin Central.
Okay. We do have that, so I'll make that change.
Yeah.
Good catch. All right, further discussion. Hearing none, all those in, was there a motion?
Yeah.
Joe? Yeah, there was a
Sorry.
motion.
Yes.
Sorry,
Alder
Mayor.
Holmquist and Alder Thomas.
Sorry, Mayor. And you think you're going to be mayor? Strike his phone number off that list, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries, and again, in behalf of the whole council, if you could extend our thank you to Mr. Reed, because it's
Will do.
great to have that. Moving on to new business, item 2A, you will notice started for immediate action is consideration of resolution 14-12-1999.
Move to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Second. But just for the public to know what we're suspending, it's a final resolution authorizing levying special assessments against benefited properties for dredging work to Lagoon du Nord, Lagoon du Sud, and Sumac Lagoon and the Cove Circle Channel. There was a motion and a second, suspend the rules, take this item out of order. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Is there a motion and approval?
Second.
Second. Mr. Hodeker.
This is the final resolution for levying the special assessment and get Belle Isle for the dredging that was done in 2012. This lets us authorize to bill it and put it on the tax roll.
Is that reflected in the tax statements that everyone received just last
Yes,
week?
yeah.
So this is on, and we're just affirming.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you're aware of, if you look at number 5 in here, therefore 5, it is an arbitration, so there still could be some costs that come along eventually based on the outcome of that project.
Was there anything noted in those tax bills sent to those residents affected that's on there and that arbitration could be, or
Yes, when the letter was sent out, that was all put in there.
as a separate letter?
Yeah.
Not with, okay. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mark. Moving on to item 2B, is to convene in closed session under Wisconsin statute section 19-1-1-C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. And section 19.85, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This closed session is for discussion of an employee agreement in a personnel matter. Is there a motion to convene in closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is a motion second? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Bussey.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Spate.
Aye.
Alder O'Connor. Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Thomas.
Aye.
Motion carries. We will be off the air for about 10 minutes.
So when are you going to open your present?
In announcements. We're making Mary Ann watch, I'm sure she's watching, so I'll keep her up all night. Oh, my gosh. Ready, guys? And we have no video. Oh, yes, we do. What a great team. I'd like to reconvene in open session under Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, paren 2. Moving on to item D is discussion and action on an employee agreement and the approval of an employee resignation, which involves a police officer. Alder Bussey?
I move to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
There's a motion to suspend the rules, take this item out of order. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
There's a motion to approve.
Second.
You can take your pick on the second, Joan. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Thomas.
Aye.
Alder Bussey.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Spate.
Aye.
Alder O'Connor.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye. All right, thank you. Moving on to item H is reports of committees, commissions, boards, mayor, city, and et al. And this evening, we have a presentation by Mr. Stefani. It's the Dan Stefani evening here tonight. So,
Yes.
welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I had a lot of time to think about my presentation. It's December 15th, so I had pretty much the whole year. Trying to think where to start off, and I know a lot of you are familiar with a lot of the things that we do. Some of you may not be, and some really may not know what we all have out there as a city in public works. So I guess with that in mind, that's where I started with my presentation. What is our public works department? It's a department of 12 staff, full-time staff, and 1 intern. We're made up of 5 divisions: a street operations unit with 5 staff, a utilities department with 3 staff, a fleet maintenance section with 1 staff, facility maintenance, 1 staff, and administration with 3 staff.
Dan, does that reflect the transfer last year to Parks and Rec?
Yes.
Some of your
yes.
staff was
Right.
migrated to...
Right. So the data that you see on this sheet is strictly for public works and utilities.
Thank you.
What are we responsible for? In our street operations, we're responsible for 68 lane miles of city streets. We have 6 bridges in the city that we're responsible for. We have approximately 1,250 street signs that we maintain, and this does not include Monona Drive or Broadway. We have about 14 miles of sidewalk that we maintain, and about 666 streetlights in the city.
I just want to note that, so Alder Spate picked up on that 14 miles of sidewalk. Way too much sidewalk for a city.
Some people think we need more.
Yeah.
In the water utility, we have 48 miles of water main in the city, about 1,097 water valves that we maintain, 444 fire hydrants in the city that we're responsible for. 385 of those is public, and we have 59 private.
Cool.
Even though they're termed private, in the eyes of the PSC and the state, we're still responsible for the quality of the water, so we have to maintain those hydrants as well. We have 3 water reservoirs and 1 water tower in the city, and 3 wells/booster stations to pump that water. In 2013, we pumped just over 262 million gallons of water for a daily average of 718,000 gallons. In the sewer utility, we have 38 miles of sewer main, 860 manholes that we are responsible for, 6 lift stations, 3 grinder stations, 3.5 on-site lift station generators. I'll get to the other half shortly. And we pump over pumped over 300 million gallons of wastewater in 2013. Anybody doing the math yet?
How do you have more
So
wastewater
can you go back
than
to-
water?
Yes.
How much water per day we're doing clean water? So we do more sewer water than we do clean water?
Yes.
Wow.
Anybody know what the difference is? I. Infiltration, system infiltration,
Is that substantial?
13%, yep.
Hmm.
On average, we pump 822,000 gallons a day in 2013. In the stormwater utility, we have 24 miles of stormwater main, 522 stormwater manholes that we maintain, 1,645 stormwater catch basins in the city, and those get cleaned every year. 105 stormwater outfalls, 3 stormwater lift stations, and here's the other half, 2.5 on-site lift station generators. The key services and work completed by staff.
Chad has a question.
Yes.
All respect.
The number 24 miles of stormwater main, I think main is the operative word in that sentence. Like, there are hundreds of miles of underground pipe, or, I mean, how can you have more stormwater, or less stormwater miles than you have street miles? That doesn't make sense. Do we have that many streets that don't have storm
We have
water?
68 lane miles of local road, and that does not include Monona Drive and Broadway.
Okay.
We are responsible for the storm main on Monona Drive and Broadway, but there's 24 miles of storm main in the city. So
So does that mean that we have roughly 40 miles of streets that don't have stormwater?
there are some sections of roads that does not have main underneath, and that's where we rely on the curb and gutter to convey the stormwater to the nearest catch basin.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Key services and work completed by our staff. The big one, snow and ice removal. We do sidewalk repair. Our guys are able to bust out old sidewalk and lay the new concrete in, the smaller jobs. The big jobs is through the contractors. We also do curb repair, pothole repair, and small area patching. Next year, we're going to do even more road maintenance work with our own crews. We've got guys who have experience in that, and we're going to start doing more work. We do tree trimming and mowing, street sign maintenance, pavement marking, curbside leaf collection, and street sweeping. We also supply drinking water for our residents. We supply water for fire protection in the city. We provide wastewater and stormwater collection and conveyance. We complete diggers highline locates, over 2,000 annually, that our guys go out and complete out in the streets. We have over 80 inspections of the right-of-way program every year. We have stormwater and erosion control enforcement for public projects. On the private side, our building inspector does that.
What is right-of-way program inspection?
Our right-of-way program is basically any work that occurs within the street right-of-way, basically from sidewalk to sidewalk or from terrace line to terrace line. Anything that happens inside that boundary is considered the right-of-way.
So what's a typical inspection of what?
Utility companies.
Or
Right.
utility doing something?
Anybody doing something with a driveway apron,
Okay.
boring, anything like that, we go out and monitor everything. The facility maintenance, we have some role in maintaining every city facility that we have, and we're responsible for all fleet and equipment maintenance. We also have contracted services. We have solid waste and recycle collection as provided by Advanced Disposal. Our bulk items collection is also provided by Advanced Disposal. Our city forester, we have a contract with Mike Johnson for, annual contract. Our engineering, currently it's Strand, Verbecker, and SES. Moving forward in 2015, SES won't be part of that. The team that we've been working with is no longer there. Our curbside brush collection is Johnson Tree Care. Our traffic light maintenance is provided by the City of Madison. Our street light maintenance is provided by MG&E. Our yard waste disposal is through Purple Cow Organics. and our fuel is through Landmark. These are all contracted services that are monitored by me in our department. Our largest contracted service is our solid waste and recycle. In 2013, we recycled 834 tons of material. We collected over 1,791 tons of garbage for a combined cost of $321,000 in 2013. The recycle revenue that we generate is over $65,000. That's something we should be proud of. We haven't, prior to 2012, we never got revenue from our recycled material. Number of curbside stops, 2,706. That's every week. We have that many stops of collection. In 2013, the residential cost per month, your cost, $7.87. That's the combined cost. Your annual cost for 2013 was just over $94 for that curbside service. The recycle revenue per stop, over $24. So your recycling helped generate $24 for your stop.
Dan, I don't know if it's possible, and you don't need to spend time, but if you have contact with Advanced Disposal, so 1/3 of our total refuse is recycled. I just wonder how that stacks up against the world, regionally or other communities. Fitchburg claims to be the green city. 33% recycling seems pretty good, but maybe that's, I don't know if that's good or bad, but it
As
seems
far as
good.
our recycling per capita,
Yeah, it was 1/3 of our total is recyclable, and the rest
I'll-
is garbage.
I'll show you how we stack up.
Okay.
Very next slide. This is compiled,
We rehearsed this, excuse me.
this data is compiled by the DNR annually. You can see our pounds per capita. The blue is the city of Monona. We're just, I'd say about 220 pounds per capita recycled. The green is the collection standard for the city of Monona, and that's a standard set by the state. The gold line is the average for Dane County, and the red line is the average for the state of Wisconsin. So you can see that we're well above
Tip of the
our
hat.
neighbors.
Good,
So-
congratulations.
The next slide, I don't know if that's kind of hard to read as well. The gold line is the county average per capita. The red line is the state average. Monona, we're towards the left. I think we're the fourth one in. We are above the averages here, so I think it's something we should be proud of. In 2012, we had a state award for recycling per capita, cost per capita. That's also something we should be proud of.
Maple Bluff must have their butlers take their recyclables.
Yeah, we've got some big numbers.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. First one.
Oh,
Blow them out of the water.
Where's Fitchburg?
Take over the
first one.
First one.
Yep, just above the state average.
They're gonna have to redo that
Next to
logo.
us, so among our peer group, we're doing pretty darn well with Verona.
Yep.
Town
Over here.
We have something to aspire to, but we're on a pretty lofty perch, so.
Look at sustainability on that.
And Verona, that's just epic alone, and they just pay everybody to recycle there. Good, thank you.
In our 2014 budget, the cost of our service for Public Works, we have just over $1.1 million as expense in our general fund for operating budget. Our combined utility operating budget's just over $3 million. Our capital budget, which includes projects and equipment, just over $1.4 million. Our total combined budget for Public Works and utilities is just over $5.6 million annually. Our challenges for the future: completing the required work with the current staff we have. In my ideal world, 2 more additional crew members would be nice. What those 2 would do, right now we don't inspect a whole lot of our manholes, and that's a goal of mine, is to get the inspection program. My goal is 50% of our combined 1,382 manholes inspected each year. We also have a goal of inspecting at least 50% of our stormwater outfalls each year, so we can get 100% every other year. Exercise 50% of our water system valves each year. These are all items that we're not doing to our satisfaction. These are the goals that we have in our future. It'd also be nice to have another person in our mechanics department to do the simple task like lube technician, oil changes, things of that nature.
For the
preventive
first
maintenance.
two, to me, seem relatively weather dependent. Is that something that we could do as a step, working with someone like Madison College to get interns to?
Any intern would be appreciated, yes. The ideal time to do the manhole inspection would be in spring, because what we're looking for there is infiltration. If we can find where the I&I is coming in, we start tackling that in our maintenance items and help reduce that cost. It would help, if we can tackle I&I, that would help reduce our pumpage costs at our lift stations. So there's money savings
So
there.
help me understand how I&I is happening at manholes and what we could do to prevent that. What are we going to do if we find water's going into a manhole? How are you going to fix it?
We, a lot of our manholes are made of brick, the old block style manholes. We have some modern manholes in our areas that we've had local road reconstruction. Where the manholes are seamed together, those are areas where I&I comes in, the groundwater pressure. On the block manholes, wherever they meet, that's where I&I can get in. A way to tackle that, we don't have to take out the manhole and replace it, we can line it. There are several contractors in the state that will come in and either put an epoxy coating on the manhole, put a mortar, a spray-on mortar, a cement mixture on the manhole. So there's treatments that we can do in place.
Well, that would make me think that there might be grant opportunities for something like that, because I would think MMSD would love to know we were doing some of that work, because that just drives their costs up, because it's all going out to the
It drives our
sewage.
cost and their cost up.
Yeah, they charge, they pass that
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
So
paying
they're
for that.
making money off of our
Yeah.
failures.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's
They're
grant
covering
money out there,
costs.
They're covering it, they're recovering it. Okay.
but it's something that we definitely want to look at and take care of.
Yeah, if we could put a dollar value to what we think our I&I is costing us, and then
Mhm.
what we would gain by preventing it, might be
Right.
an interesting exercise.
So that is pretty much my presentation. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Once again, I just love these. I learned more stuff about what goes on. I think it's very telling, and hopefully didn't have to spend an inordinate amount of time pulling that data. I would like you to keep how many stormwater outfalls there are into the lake, the 110, I think, in your data.
Well, we have 105, that's what I pulled off the
105?
report, so
Oh, okay.
I think it's on a
105.
few
All right.
slides before this, so.
Questions? Alder O'Connor.
What is it a grinder station? What is
A
that?
grinder station, let's use the Dream Park for instance, because it sits lower than the sanitary sewer main. To get the waste from the building to the main, we have what's called a grinder pump. So the waste goes to the grinder pump and it pumps it up to the main. So there's 3 of those in the city.
And where are they?
The Dream Park, Fireman's Park, and by Mr. Litchfield's.
And we replaced that. That's a new one that Mr. Litchfield's on.
Yep.
So is firemen's.
And so is
Yeah.
Fireman. So
Yep.
2 of the 3 are just a couple of years old.
Yeah.
And the other one's 2006.
Right,
Okay,
fairly
so
new.
we should be good
Yeah.
on it.
And those pumps, if they go out, they're fairly cheap. We can buy one and put it in a day's time, so.
And are those the pumps where they highly recommend not to put Swifties down flush?
Any pump. Even our big, large lift stations, they get caught in the impellers, the check valves, and they do grow. They catch other stuff, and it's amazing the size of these balls that can be created. I think over in London 2 years ago, some of you might have seen that on CNN, but they pulled a ball out about 6 feet in diameter in one of their sanitary sewer mains. It's crazy.
And do we pull that stuff out of our lift stations? Or
When
is
we
that our
clean check valves,
responsibility?
Only in our pump stations, we We have seen it, and we've pulled stuff out, but they mainly see it at
But we do
MMSD.
our own maintenance, we don't contract
Right,
that out.
no, we do our own. Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Dan,
Thank you.
and if we could make sure this gets posted to the website too, I think
Sure.
this is really valuable.
Okay.
Informative. All right. Pat, strategic
Yeah.
plan update.
Thank you. It's been it's been over a year since the council and staff met and went through the strategic planning process. And about quarterly, I've been sending you these updates as to where we,
Guys, if you could keep the slide projector or the laptop, please.
the laptop up. Approximately quarterly, I've been providing these updates to yourself in regards to where we're at in the tactics and the various tasks we've set as priorities moving forward. I recently sent you one last Tuesday, and if you have any questions on some of the ones I don't go over, please bring those up. But I've highlighted some that I see as some of the top priorities that we've accomplished this year or are currently working on, and I'll address those. You'll see on this spreadsheet that each of these items, these strategies and tactics, have a staff assigned to them, a deadline, along with a current status. So I'll just start here with the first one I highlighted was to facilitate public access to commercial waterfront development. As you know, as you will note, the Trasta project is currently well in the works and taking shape, large shape. And we've also been working on our riverfront development project at the corner of Bridge and Broadway. Last week, the Ruby's building was taken down, so we're progressing on that tactic. Item 10 here, and these are all highlighted, is to update the comprehensive plan in 2014. Sonia's been very busy working on this document, is about 70% done through the Plan Commission process. Once that document's through that process and approved by Plan Commission, it'll come to the council. We're anticipating a May, June adoption of that plan by this body. Item 13 is develop a maintenance plan for Monona Drive. As you'll note, during the budget process, we, along with Dan, we've decided to hire a few additional staff people to replace some of our previously contracted line items, to put some people directly to work on Monona Drive and Broadway, working on the medians and terraces, to sort of set the stage of what we expect those corridors to be, what level we expect those corridors to be maintained at. Some of the other options moving forward with Monona Drive is we've had tentative meetings with preliminary meetings with our chamber in regards to starting the discussion about a bid, business improvement district, that the property owners would actually take stake in the maintenance of their frontage. Item 17 up there is to fund Renew Monona, and all of you did that in the 2015 budget. We'll be rolling out a grant, I shouldn't say a grant, the loan program again this spring. And again, that funds properties, residential properties that are within 10%, that are under 10% of the median house value in Monona. So somewhere around $250,000 would sort of be the benchmark this year. We'll have those exact numbers out here shortly. But anybody that falls in that price range of home or value of home would qualify for those funds. We anticipate having about $45,000 this year to loan out. Again, those are no interest loans that are due 10 years out or at refinancing or sale of their home. So it's a great program. I mentioned item 20 there is gauge support for the Monona Drive bid. We've started that process and look forward to moving that even further in 2015. Moving down, you'll notice some of these numbers on the left there's some gaps in those numbers. That's actually because it's a duplicate staff that have worked on those, so that's why we're skipping some lines here on those numbers on the left. Dan on line item 37 has developed a more aggressive street maintenance plan based on budget constraints. You'll note that both in the capital and operating budgets, we've increased the amount of work we're doing on our local streets, and we're doing that due to the not neglect of our street system, but the amount of effort we put into Monona Drive, and that was the focus of our financial efforts there for a while. So we're putting a little more effort into our local street program and maintenance of that, along with reconstruction. Item 49 here is promote increased ridership in our transit system. The Transit Committee has been working on a marketing strategy, a marketing plan that's in place, and hopefully we can reach some of those objectives that are set forth in that plan. I would like to note that we have seen some increase in ridership over the last year. Not the numbers that we ultimately would like to see, but at least the ridership is increasing. Items 56 and 57, both are in regards to property maintenance and increasing staffing of our code enforcement. That was done in March of last year, and you've all been receiving periodic updates on our code enforcement efforts. Excuse me. We're at about, we've resolved about 95% of the issues that have been noted by Jeremy Small, our property maintenance inspector. So, item 60 up there, I just spoke with Alderman Thomas about that today. Alderman Thomas is spearheading a welcome wagon packet for new members of the committee, and she's going to kick that off early in 2015 with the support of of Aline, our receptionist, along with some younger newcomers and younger families in Monona.
You think I'm too old?
No.
Just teasing.
We also, along those lines, had meet and greet for new residents at existing community events. I wanted to note that our library and our Parks and Rec Committee and other committees have had booths. Sustainability Committee, for instance, had booths at our festival and our fall festival, so the 4th of July and our fall festival. So that's a good way to get not only to our members of the public, but also to visitors who are coming to Monona for various reasons. Item 66 is to increase use of technology. The biggest thing we did in 2014, hands down, is what we did on our website in terms of getting information out to the public. And Leah does a great job with staffing that, making sure things on that website are current. And all the department heads do a great job getting her that information. So it's a team effort and a great investment made by this council in terms of that website. Item 79 is another good example of some cost-saving initiatives. LED lighting for buildings. We're just currently in the process of doing a changeover at City Hall, changing the majority of our light fixtures, our lights over to LED. That was an item we had earmarked in 2014, and we're in process of doing that now. I don't know if we'll be done in 2014, but we'll have that done definitely during these winter months. And I'm just going to move on here to some of the last few. Safety training. All of our staff utilizes CIVMIC for safety training, whether that be our police officers, our firefighters, public works, and City Hall staff. All those services are offered free or as part of our membership in that insurance pool, so that's a nice little added bonus there. And then item 122 is sort of one of the things we've been doing, but is still sort of a negative on our outlook here, and that is to monitor DaneCom and its work and effectiveness. To date, it's been a very large disappointment put forth by the county, and I know they're working to try to get that fixed. The county executive has put additional funds in the budget for that. And we're fortunate here in Monona that we have our own dispatch center and don't have the issues that many of the outlying communities in the county have. I recently heard that one of the furthermost western communities in Dane County is looking to receive dispatch services through Iowa County. So that doesn't say a whole lot about the current system. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I'd like to continue to provide these updates to you on a quarterly basis throughout the year, or whenever you want the information, I can give you an update. And then at the end of the year, I'll do this again next year to sort of give you an update, cross off the things we've taken off our list or highlight them and move on to the next task.
As part of the service, we contracted with Wally Jankowski at Reinvention Consultants, who moderated this process with it. And so I asked him to sit down with Pat and, have an arm's length review of that. In his report, he was, I don't know if he didn't say stunned, but he was very, very pleased with what he saw Pat had managed and staff had accomplished, and he said it's good, if not better than anything he's ever, the follow through, and was pleasantly surprised that the document's truly living as it was intended to be, and it's being maintained and updated and or redeployed if we guessed wrong in some of our priorities or chose wrong. And so I thank you, Pat, and on behalf of Walter, we're walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So
yeah, each of the department heads has this item in front of them, and as they address these issues, they provide the updates to me. So I'd like to thank them too.
Do we get this entire list?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that everyone has the opportunity, if there's some of the points that weren't highlighted that you would like Pat to clarify at a quarterly meeting.
Yeah, there's 152 items on this list. As I mentioned before, some are duplicates because multiple staff are assigned to one line item, but overall we're looking at about 80 tasks. So
good, thank you. All right, reports. Dan, did you have something you wanted to report out on or add? Oh, you've been patiently waiting for your laptop. Thank you for sharing that with us tonight. Alder O'Connor.
Sustainability meeting is, our Sustainability Committee meets this Thursday at 6:30 at City Hall, and we're wrapping up the sustainability plan. We're continuing to work on that. And there is a contest to select or make nominations for possible call letters for the radio station. And there included information about how to do that in his column in the city newsletter, so if anyone's interested.
We sent a press release out this morning, and I was surprised that Channel 27 and Madison.com both picked up on it, and I looked at during the meeting, there were over 40 respondents, some silly, some quite serious, and so the word, again, I love it when Monona's getting recognition in the general public, so.
And I saw that the city sent out an alert about it, too.
Yep.
That's great.
Alder Spate?
Just want to mention that our transit system right now is having a little struggle. One of our two buses is in the shop. It had to be sent back, I believe, to Indiana for some major repairs, and the replacement vehicles have been a little bit less than adequate or inspiring, and we've gotten some pretty serious complaints. But I am assured that we're in the process of getting some better replacement vehicles to get us through the winter months until this primary bus gets back in service. So we appreciate the patience of our riders.
Thank you. Alder Wood?
Library, Library Board meets tomorrow night at 7. License Review Committee last week met, and we did have on our agenda the application for the alcohol license for the pub to going in at Tresta.
Oh.
We didn't take any action on it. The applicant actually got stuck in traffic in Milwaukee, so it was tabled until the next meeting.
Is it named in that document, or is it just?
I don't remember the name of it. Do you, Joe?
Do not.
Something Mill.
Weybridge.
I don't know.
Don't remember.
Yeah, I would just be interested to see what they were going to call it, since their last one was
Flying Hound.
Flying Hound, kind of a unique name, so. Okay. Alder Spate? I mean, God. Alder Holmquist.
No report.
Right. Alder Thomas. Alder Bussey.
Facilities meets this Wednesday. Should be the last review of Pilatus and the first review of Schluter, and there will be no Plan Commission meeting next Monday due to lack of agenda items.
It's a nice problem during the holidays. The City Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. We're still working on data entry for the November 4th election. Hard to believe, but there were a lot of registrations. Otherwise, just status quo.
And if somebody still wants to run for mayor or one of the 3 aldermanic seats, when is the last time they can take out papers? Or?
They can take out papers. The papers are due until by January 6th in my office. So, any time up until then. So they are available.
Okay. And if anyone, Alder Bussey alerted me, if anyone wants to know how to run for office, we have a guideline here. So. City Administrator Marsh.
Nothing additional.
Just 2 things. One serious, but I want to note the passing of a long-time Monona resident, Jack Jared. Was 92, I believe, and was very involved in all kinds. It was, which I didn't realize till I read his obituary, but was a fantastic athlete at the UW in track and football, and was on the championship football team, and was just an amazing artist. And I don't know if we have any of his illustrations at City Hall, but he donated things for fundraising, and did that fall realism painting. He could paint a photo to make it look better than the photo. So I believe there's a service upcoming next Monday, and I send the city's condolences to his wife. On a lighter note, I was presented by City Administrator Marsh, and not that the mayor's hinting that he'd love gifts at the holiday season, but former First Lady Mary Ann Litchfield asked Pat to give the mayor this Christmas present, and that it asked that it be opened. So Mary Ann, if you're watching, we thank you for, oh man, this could be embarrassing, not rehearsed. Happy holidays from your dog park fiends, friends. So, here we go. So,
Hold it up to the camera.
as God is my witness, we will have a dog park, or at least a study, all those good things to you.
Or a t-shirt, anyway.
Or a t-shirt. Thanks, Emma. So with that, I have no further reports. We do have two appointments this evening. John Griffith to the Zoning Board of Appeals, effective January 1st, running through May 2017. And Brett Blamy is an alternate to the Zoning Board of Appeals, effective immediately, running through 2017. Is there a motion for approval of the appointments?
Move approval?
Second? There's a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The appointments are made. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Move adjournment.
Well, yes, Alder Thomas.
Is our first meeting in January going to be a short meeting?
I anticipate, given the actions by the council tonight, there'll be very few items, if any, on the agenda for a first meeting in January.
Okay, the reason I ask is because I thought it would be good to have a little, so I wanted to get together for staff and council at my house after the meeting.
Who's going to make brownies? Anyone? Up for
No, better than brownies.
Oh, okay.
All right. I'll let them
That's
know
always a
that.
good idea. The intent of the mayor is to have all council meetings be as short as possible, so that one will be even shorter, I hope, so. Thank you for that offer, Alder Thomas. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Move adjournment.
Second?
Second?
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everyone.